I kicked my ex in the vagina while changing positions during sex in the dark. What's the most awkward accidental physical contact you've had with the opposite sex? I went to high school with my cousin. We were at a high school dance or some sort of event and I spotted my cousin across the gymnasium. I snuck up behind her, picked her up around the waist, and ran across the gym with her just to shake things up a little bit. After I put her down I realized she was not my cousin and I did not know her. Was on a late flight going from San Diego to Cincinnati back in 2007 or 2008, I was in the middle seat, very attractive 20-something girl was sitting in the window seat. We make the standard small talk for a few minutes, I end up falling asleep for a little bit, wake up and she's snuggled up on me sound asleep. Like mouth open, drooling, hand on my lap, head on my chest, sound asleep. Basically how your wife or girlfriend would sleep on you if you were on a plane. Very intimate considering we didn't know each other. I felt bad because she was sleeping and I didn't want to wake her by shoving her off of me, so I just sat there for 2 hours trying to be as still as possible while thinking of how awkward it is going to be when she wakes up. Luckily she was a good sport and just laughed it off and apologized. We chatted the rest of the flight and she gave me her number and said if I ever wanted to see more of Cincinnati, I recently got based in Cincy and didn't know the city well, or to grab a couple of drinks to give her a call. I was newlywed to my future ex-wife and never took her up on her offer. Every now and then I wonder how she's doing. Getting on a school bus, tripping on the final step, and falling face first into the bus driver's crotch. He laughed, I laughed, other kids laughed, and I died a bit inside. Was at the doctor's office, being examined by a cute resident about my age who was clearly nervous about physical contact. She kept asking consent for anything involving contact, including things like taking my pulse and using a stethoscope. Then at one point, as I'm sitting on the table with my hand on the corner, she leans over toward me to check my ear, and her crotch is resting on my hand. As in my knuckle is fully in her camel toe. I didn't move or say anything in order to avoid making things more awkward and pretended not to notice. I think she was pretending not to notice too. I worked in a restaurant and had a super bitchy manager. One night, she slipped on a greasy floor and would have fallen down 25 metal steps, but I was able to reach out and grab her, possibly saving her life and definitely saving her from broken bones. She thanked me and laughed. My hands were squeezing both of her breasts and holding on like both our lives depended on it. She was a lot nicer to work with after that. I was walking through a hallway at work, where a guy and girl I've never met were talking. As I got closer, the guy held out his arms in a "come on through" motion, but instead, I hugged him. Afterward, I didn't know what to do, so I just kept walking. I've never seen that guy again. Walking through a haunted house on a field trip in high school and one of my cute classmates, who I barely knew, freaked out and jumped into my arms. I was startled but caught her and also caught a handful of boob. Now I was the freaked one, but she was so scared I tried to let her go, but she hung on to me like a sloth the rest of the way through. I put her down at the end, gave her a nod, and stumbled away. I think we talked like twice the rest of our high school careers. I was in a wedding reception line and hugged my buddy who was just got married, then hugged and kissed his new bride on the cheek and then moved on to, apparently, the maid of honor, whom I had never met. In the rhythm of the moment, I reached to hug her, too, then was about to kiss her cheek, when got the instinctual impulse that this was too far for a complete stranger, so I guess to not look I was performing a head fake on her. I instead bent my head and kissed her on the neck, right above her bare shoulder. We were going down a large water slide into the pool. I went first and she came too quickly, landing with her legs wrapped around my neck, forcing my head to go underwater. I was 12, maybe 13. At Crush's house, crushing hard. She had a basketball hoop and asked if I play. A devilish grin creeps onto my face. Instantly took up guard. She fakes left. Runs right. She's too slow. Puts up a shot in front of me like I'm some kind of bitch. Fuck that. I swat the ball like a recruiter. My mother, and Jesus was there watching. She tries holding on to the ball. Big mistake. She falls. Hard. I fall on top of her. Harder. Bruised her rib. Bloody knees and elbows. She doesn't talk to me all the way up till senior year and tells every girl in school. Still undefeated. Practicing judo as a 13-year-old boy, practicing with some girl who must have been 17. She had me in some hold I couldn't name or really demonstrate, it'd been a while. As an attempt to get out of the hold, I put my arm on her lower leg and pushed. My hand slipped and I pelted my fingers into her crotch quite aggressively. I've never seen someone more angrily say "I beg your pardon." Eating lunch with coworkers at Twin Peaks. Cute waitress gets high fives from all of us for some reason. Just as I go in for mine, someone calls her name, and she turns her head/shoulders and lowers her hand. There was no time to stop, I was already in motion. I high-fived her right in the boob. In front of my boss and coworkers. The look she gave me, she knew it was an accident, but that still didn't make it any less awkward for her and the rest of the meal. I was on a streetcar and was kinda spaced out listening to music, and a woman came plop down in the seat next to me. To my horror, my hand was resting in that seat unknowingly, and she jumped up and gave me a death stare and moved to another open seat away from me. A few other people were giving me dirty looks. I just got off at the next stop to end my public embarrassment. I'm sure this has happened to some people on here, but I was in a store, snuck up on my girlfriend's sister and hit her with a boat paddle as petty revenge for hitting me with a broom earlier. Right on her butt. We were young and dumb. As I muttered something clever like "How do you like dem apples?" she turned around and it turned out to be a lady in her 40s wearing the same jeans/pink shirt combo. I apologized thoroughly and explained myself, and she was okay with it only because I basically told her she looked like a teenager from the back, in so many words. And no, my girlfriend and her sister just watched it all and offered no help or confirmation of the same outfit from behind another aisle. Saying goodbye to a friend of mine after they graduated. I went in for a hug, but our faces went in the same way and we kissed. Then I tried to do it again and faces went the same way that time too. We kept fumbling before getting it right and having a normal friendly hug. I think we were both too stubborn to give up, but it only made it worse. We had and would continue to have zero attraction to each other. In high school, there was a girl whom I had a crush on. I'm pretty sure the crush was mutual and we were doing that thing where we were hanging out a lot and talking a lot, but no one was making a move. Anyway, we went to a restaurant with a group of friends and she was sitting next to me. All of a sudden she was leaning over so her head was almost in my lap. I just kinda froze and thought she was doing some weird gesture of affection. She suddenly said, "Could you move?" I dropped something. I said, "Oh," and then she said, "Oh, you thought?" Brief awkwardness where I worried she thought I thought she was going for a BJ in the middle of a restaurant. Anyway, we're still good friends. I've told this story on Reddit before, but hey, it's so applicable to this question. I was walking through the city in August, the peak of busyness. The population more than doubles and the pavements are absolutely packed with tourists. I'm only 4 feet 0 inches tall, I have dwarfism, and I have the advantage of being able to weave through you lanky ass giants, so I was dodging and diving at quite a pace compared to everyone else. I noticed a woman ahead of me in the crowd, talking on her phone. She was very tall and also in 6 inches heels. I took a millisecond to admire her amazing figure in her tight-fitting dress before I tried to dodge past her, but she sidestepped in the same direction and stopped in her tracks completely, reacting to the conversation on the phone, I'm assuming. I face-planted right into her ass with some force. She whirled around and screamed at me in horror, a reasonable reaction I think. I felt my face flush red, mortified. I blurted out a sorry and swiftly darted away into the crowd again before she could do any more, like slapping me. I was walking with my boss and we were chatting away. We were on a street and I moved slightly behind him to allow someone to pass going the opposite direction. I didn't move immediately then next to him for some reason, and as he turned out to speak to me, he swung his hands. He swung his hands straight into my crotch. He fanny slapped me basically. I don't know who laughed harder, me or the guy walking past at the time who witnessed the whole thing. Was on an unusually crowded subway, backed up against one of the partition walls. Hot girl squeezes in at the next stop, and full on backs her yoga panted butt right into my crotch. I had nowhere to go, couldn't decide whether I should say something or not. Also couldn't decide whether it'd be ruder to have a boner or not. My stop was only 3 stops away, but those were the most pleasant 3 stops I've ever had on a subway. I was on the tube once, when this attractive woman was moving towards the exit to get off at the next stop. When the train suddenly lurched to a stop. She lost her balance, and I reached out to stop her falling into me. Unfortunately, this involved me accidentally grabbing her breast. Senior trip in high school, seated next to my crush on the bus. We'd already been up all night and were on our way to destination number 2 when I fell asleep. I woke up when we got there only to discover that I'd awoken with raging 17-year-old morning wood. Worse, I was wearing loose-fitting surfer shorts, so there was no concealing of what was going on. Worse, she got up to get off the bus in front of me, meaning I would be standing right behind her in close proximity. So there I am, standing a couple of inches behind my high school crush, with a very prominent erection completely uninhibited by any form of restrictive clothing, unignorable thwacking against her behind, trying to act casual as we file off the bus. We were drunk and getting ready for bed. I was watching a video on my phone and laughing, and my friend's girlfriend came over to watch. She had no pants on, just underwear, and her kind of sat/half laid down onto the couch with me. A friend was not the type to care, and this was fairly normal for us. This got me a bit worked up because I was drunk and she was stunningly gorgeous. When she got up though, she lost her balance and fell backward. Literally right onto my penis. I felt it stabbing her butt. It hurt. Her eyes widened and she just stammered out a sorry and rushed off. I just couldn't believe how cartoonish it was. Literally almost had accidental sex. In my first year of wrestling, I was top in a starter position, basically doggy style, with my team captain, a male. On the whistle, I lost my coordination and grabbed a whole handful of dick and balls, eliciting a tea kettle like a sound from the poor guy. As the only female on the team, I did not live that down for the whole season. I was sitting on a bus, by the aisle, talking to the person on the seat in front of me and gesticulating a lot. Girl wearing a sundress walks by me right as I move my all side hand upwards, catching the dress and lifting it way up. So, technically no contact with her, but still very embarrassing. And I didn't even see what happened because I was looking forward and she was very quick to pull it back down. I did a hospitality course a few years ago, and we had to do a training weekend at a fine dining restaurant. As I was walking out of the pantry during busy lunch service, another student and I bumped into each other. With the way her hand was swaying, it landed right as a perfect cup around my cock and balls. We both just froze for a few seconds, hands still there, processing what was happening, which only amped up the awkwardness. She let out a shocked yelp, looking absolutely aghast, and we swiftly walked on. Bonus awkward points: she was from a very conservative background in China, and I suspect that was the first time she had ever touched a penis. Oops. When I was 19, I worked at a burger joint. I was a cashier. One time when I was handed the order from a coworker, I extended my arm without looking and grabbed. It was not a bag with fries and burgers, it was one of her boobs. I turned around, luckily both of us just laughed. I once saw a longtime friend in the hall at school. We, of course, ran to each other like in the movies for a glorious hug. One of my female classmates was terrified, standing in the middle of 2 dudes running at each other. We grabbed her for the hug, but I accidentally grabbed her boob. This was the day she didn't wear a bra. I used to get pushed around a lot in high school. One time, someone pushed me from behind and I fell face first into a girl's breasts. It was actually a very soft landing, but when I looked up, she was horrified. They were neato. This happened a few weeks ago. I was swimming at the beach in rather dark water with my friends. I have this one friend who likes to do a lot of gay shit like pull pants down, grab your dick, tickle your balls, try to shove his leg up your ass, etc. We are splishing and splashing about when all of a sudden I felt what felt like a knee going up my ass. So I of course am trying to fart on it, so I start holding down and pushing closer to whatever was trying to go up to my butt. I then felt long hair where my smile turns into an face as I see a 12-year-old girl pop out of the water. She looks at me, coughs a few times because her face was just up my ass, and then swims away. I've shared this before, but I was at a car boot sale in Cheddar with my mom and my partner. We were looking at stuff and I let go of his hand to get closer. There was a small crowd around the table, and when I stepped back, I saw my partner out of the corner of my eye, so without turning I reached back and slipped my fingers between his. I hear a stranger with an accent say trying to hold my hand. They weren't his fingers. I thought they were softer than normal. I jumped and pulled my hand away, and apologized as I looked around for my partner. My partner walked over from the other end of the table, laughing, and said I knew what was going to happen and I just had to see. We all laughed and I apologized again. Then we walked away as fast as possible. What made it worse is I am, a pasty fat girl and he was a hot Mediterranean guy. Thank you for listening to Reddit Space. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notifications if you'd love to see more amazing Reddit videos. Let us know in the comments what Reddit video you want to listen next.